Shallowchal here, and welcome to part two of my interview with the amazing and incredible man, John Armfield himself. People's first candidate for the lower house in the up-and-coming federal election for the seat of Fadden in Queensland. I spoke to John last week before the federal election has been called, and John is a passionate veteran who's given the bulk of his adult life for our country. He served overseas on multiple deployments, and he is a man who is not looking to be a career politician, but wants to serve in a short period of time and bring to bear the interests of Australia's veterans, our small businesses, and the communities that are being absolutely destroyed by government overreach and the blob that you guys have heard me talk about before. I hope you enjoy episode number 2. John's socials will be linked in this interview notes, and I suggest you follow him and give him a shout out. He's a great man. He really is an absolutely awesome guy, and it was a real pleasure to sit down with him, and I really appreciate his time to sit down with little old me and talk to me as well, because I got a lot out of it, and I hope you do too.
The main thing is we need to increase productivity, right?
Yep.
This is from Jared's.
And so you got to lower input costs so you can increase productivity. In my mind, that's how I see it.
So, mate, I speak to the local landscapers and stuff. Their tax accountant is telling them you actually make more money if you don't put staff on. All right. I speak to my local coffee shop guy, and he's got 2 coffee shops, 2 barber shops. And he goes, his accountant says you'll actually make the same amount of money because of payroll tax and earning over that around that 1.3 million if you get rid of 3 of the businesses and keep 1. So this is what people are telling you when you go talk to them. How is that improving productivity?
You know it's not, but it's not meant to. And that payroll tax thing is, I mean, my personal experience of this, my business tipped over the 1.3 million in payroll, and I ended up with $100,000 payroll tax bill that I literally had days to pay, and was notified by the ATO the best way for me to solve this problem was to go mortgage my house.
Seen tax structure in this country called payroll tax that actually taxes the employer to employ people. Now, I suggest we bring back a stamp duty on share trading, and the money raised from share trading is used to fund the abolition of payroll tax in this country. It is absolutely absurd that, first of all, we tax people to employ people. We have 6 different payroll tax rates in this country, 6 different threshold levels. I mean, anyone that's actually trying to do payroll tax in this country, it's a compliance nightmare. But not only that, it adds to the cost of business.
So they were prepared to put me and my family at risk to service this payroll tax debt, but I had no choice. I had to pay my people more money to keep them, because I was going to lose them to the government jobs and the NDIS jobs. The largest employer of anyone in the country in the last 12 months has been the government. So, we've seen a massive increase in public service jobs. There's more people employed by the government than at any given time in the history of the country. I believe there was more people employed by the government now than during the Second World War. I heard somewhere. Now, I don't know if that's actually accurate, but it's an interesting statistic to think about, that we could be an economy that was at war, right? And we've still got more public servants now than we had back then.
Mate, it was I think I seen it on Sky, and they were saying, quoting the Labor job figures and what they were proud of their numbers that they'd achieved, and then giving it was 80% was government sector.
Yeah.
And it was like, mate, we've got no industry. So, and we're an island. People forget we're an island. Mate, we can't make clothes. We can't make saline, medical. We've got no fuel. Like, we need industry. We need steel. China. And, mate, I'll tell you something I find funny, Scotty, is the government and the media want to tell us that China's our enemy, right? And I'm not saying they are or aren't, because I don't know. I don't have access to that level of intelligence to know what's really going on. I don't think most people do. But if China was such the enemy, the boogeyman, why are we selling him all the coal to build up the biggest naval fleet in the world? Right? It now surpasses America.
Yeah.
So,
in number,
it's like telling you're telling us that China's this evil empire that's going to attack us.
but we're happy
But
to sell
we've
them.
given them the resources.
Yep, we're giving them the resources, the coal, the steel. I mean, all the elements that they need to be able to do what they've got to do. But even then, we export about 75% of the coal that we produce. China still digs more coal out of their own country and burns it than the stuff that we export to them. So even if we sacrificed ourselves and our economy on the altar of climate change and wound down every single industry tomorrow, it's a 15th of what China would do in a week anyway. So, none of it makes any sense to me. And I mean, you referenced Adam Bandt before and your feelings about the Greens, because I see them as a treasonous, traitorous mob of insiders that are just committed to more government and the undermining of our social contract in this country. And the things that our relatives in our past have bled for and died for and have given us, our legacy.
So, mate, you've served, if you wear your uniform incorrectly, your boots unpolished, depending on where you serve, Army, Navy, or Air Force, but if you're not wearing your Australian national flag or your naval ensign, right, on your shoulder, you can be charged, right?
Yeah.
But here we've got, and let's start. I did up a thing the other day. The average Australian soldier starts on around $80,000, right? Now, a Liberal, a federal member of Parliament starts around 220. So they can go to a press conference, remove the Australian flag, and there's no repercussions. But your $80,000 soldier, he can't take his flag off his shirt, and there's no difference to what they're doing. Both of them are representing our country.
Yeah.
Right. One's actually got more media attention drawn to him. Right. Yeah. So we've now got Australian senators that refuse to talk in front of our Australian flag. Why would I now deploy? And I've happily deployed five times.
Yeah.
Why would I now deploy and pick up arms to defend that senator?
Yeah.
When he hates my flag.
Yeah. But he hates you.
What,
he hates you because I'm sure that there's a deep-seated hatred of himself in there somewhere too. If I really wanted to get deep about
it, there is, mate, and this is not an attack on any of his policies, right? I can't get past his disdain for my country.
If there's one thing
I
got
can't even look at the Greens' policies.
And I think this has been the failing of the multicultural experiment in Australia. Everyone says it's a success, and diversity is our strength, and all the rest of it. Okay, I get that, but if you don't unite us around something that we have in common, then you start to lose that. And one of the things that I've done a lot of traveling over the years. Singapore always impressed the shit out of me because you'd have all these different nationalities and all these different cultures that traditionally in their own places kind of despise each other, but you put them in Singapore and Singapore goes, we're all going to serve, we're going to do national service, and we're all going to rally around the flag and don't fuck with the country. Simple as that. There's these ground rules around it. And whether you think it's a great country or not, people differ in their opinions on it. That united concept of their nationalism creates great patriots within their country and people who want to believe in it and build in it. We seem to have diluted that terribly here, in my opinion.
Well, Scotty, when I went to school, every day we'd parade.
Yeah.
Right. We'd stand for we'd sit and then you stand for the flag and the raising of the flag and the national anthem. Mate, it starts there, and people have been. We're probably one of the most least unpatriotic countries I've ever been to.
Yeah, you've seen some places. Yeah,
mate. I was looking the other day on the globe. I've got a globe. I've hit so many places. But I was saying to someone before, when I've been to the Middle East, whether it's Oman, Dubai, Afghanistan, Kuwait, all these countries, Bahrain, I knew I was an infidel there, right? I knew that they didn't like me, but I still treated them with respect, right? It's their country. But we're not seeing that here. So if I'm over there, I'm on with another country and their flags go, I'd come to attention. I'd pay respect because I'm in their country.
Yeah.
And I respect their culture. Mate, I used to love waking up in Afghanistan to the
yeah. Yeah.
Mate, it's surreal,
But it's connecting them culturally to their religion and their land, right? That
Yeah.
Look, and it's a long story. It's a long history, and they deserve that in their own way. And
Yep.
respect for them for that. Without, I don't want to sound like a couple of just lamenting the old days, 50-year-olds here, mate. But I mean, I'm 53. I'm not sure about you. You got to be getting pretty close.
49, mate. Yeah.
49. It's almost there. Is
Yeah.
the good old days. One of the things that you would have noticed when you went through recruit training, and I noticed this in '99 when I went through, was that it didn't fucking matter what color you were. It didn't matter where you came from, your socioeconomic background, what class, status, all of it. You are all equally shit at recruit training, mate. And so I actually, and I mean, I come from Western Australia and grew up around a lot of Aboriginals and communities and worked in and on farms with Aboriginals and played footy against them. I didn't give a shit what colour you were. Like, if you're a dickhead, you're a dickhead. And if you're a good bloke, you're a good bloke. And the military certainly ingrained, I think, in all of us, mate, that sense of we're all here for the same reason, the same mission and same purpose. And so it didn't really matter. So I find myself being called a racist constantly online. So is Jared. I've seen that happen. You've probably been exposed to the same thing. And you're probably the most least racist people I've ever met in my whole life, you know. Because...
Mate, again, one of the benefits of military service, and I've never been a fan of conscription, and I've never been a fan of national service. But with what you just raised, mate, you judge people on competence, their values, and that person, right? Because I don't care if you're Indigenous, I've served with Filipinos in Australia, different Asian countries, people from different Asian countries. Obviously the Poms are probably the most annoying actually out of all. But Australia is pretty diverse in our ADF.
I think we're good like that. I've
are.
always been proud of that about us, you know.
Mate, we are. There is no racism in the ADF, because when you do pick up a weapon, even if you're just at the range, right? If you're just at the range, you want to trust that individual next to you is not gonna laser you or point the barrel of the weapon at you, right?
Yeah.
So it starts as, you don't even need to deploy to combat, or you're doing demolitions, or you're diving. If you're doing a simple dive in Sydney Harbour, in our case, you want to know the guys you're diving with, you can trust them.
Yeah.
No one cares what colour you are, you know. And mate, the other thing is, we've got ADF, the guys that are gay. No one cares you're gay. No one cares you're straight. I listened to Heston Russell in a podcast. He goes, he could have been the poster child for the ADF and the LGBTI community. He goes, no, that's what I do at home in private. I'm an Army Special Forces officer.
Yeah, that's right.
What I want to be known as.
And deserves the recognition for that too. Yeah.
And mate, I think one of the things we've lost in the military is we used to be apolitical. You know, when you joined, we didn't talk politics as such. We talked military spending maybe and capability and what we're getting.
Well,
and we hate everyone.
Football teams was a big deal as well, mate.
Football teams, but no, we're apolitical, so we didn't. And I think it was our strength, because my belief in being apolitical is we represent every Australian.
Yeah.
So we represent those in the LGBTI community, but we also represent those who have got Christian values, or Muslim values, or Buddhist, or they've got different ethnic culture. We represent the parents, the grandparents. So the best way to represent everyone is to be apolitical on every issue, right?
Yeah.
Because that was our job.
But you watch the Greens leader remove the Australian flag, right? Remove the symbol that you serve under, that your grandparents, your parents, your generations, that the history of this country since Federation, remove that symbol and say, that's racist and I don't want to be a part of that. And then rambles on about some weird patriarchy and the white male toxicity, and then expects you to go and serve your country for that. You know?
Yeah. No. And do you know what, mate? What would have happened if that was done in an Islamic country? What would have happened if that was done in America? If one of their senators or congressmen removed the American flag, you know, their senior leadership would have destroyed them.
Well, we're seeing the repercussions of that now. You know, I mean, the appointment of Pete Hegseth and people like Tulsi Gabbard and patriots around Trump. I think he's learned his lesson after the first time round, mate, that I'm going to surround myself with a team of patriots and we're going to work to get something done here. Do you think that will shine through in Australia with time? Like, I mean, in my opinion, this is people first opportunity to let people know who you are and you guys are out there, and then build that momentum and that following behind you so that you're ready when the time comes. I'd like to think that.
One thing I like about People First and Jared is it's truly people first, right? Jared doesn't need to be in politics. He's a highly educated man. He could be making a lot more money out in the private sector.
Yeah, we know.
But he's doing it because he's driven.
Yeah.
And maybe there's some similarities to Trump doesn't need to be in politics. But mate, my concern is, who are we aligning with now? Are we aligning with Europe? You know, if we go down that Ukraine path, as Albo's saying, with the coalition of the willing, I believe it is, that's not going to align well with us for America, who've actually now stepped away. And Anthony Albanese's got to be very careful here, because we're creating alliances, but we're also losing friends, but superpower friends, if we go down these paths. And you can't fix that, I believe, with Donald Trump. He's not a man who'll openly allow you to come back if you betray him.
Well, you're going to pay. You'll pay a very, very high price to get him back through your door again, and and America will take what it wants if it wants to. You know, that's what we have to remember. The relationship is a long one, but it's extremely fragile at the moment. I really get disappointed by politicians who want to talk themselves up like alpha males and pretend to beat the drums of war, or peacekeepers in Ukraine, without any real concept of capacity or what that involves or what that's going to look like. Dude, we've just got through one of the longest conflicts in our history, and most people don't understand how long we're involved in the war on terror in Afghanistan, and it's really been a defining moment for most of our adult lives. You know, you would have served with guys that weren't even born when September 11 happened, mate. You know, so how do you tell a politician or get them to explain? What I found with Jared, and I'll just touch on that for a second, was he was so well travelled and so educated that he understood the cost of war and he understood the cost of what it took to send people overseas. And I don't think that this leadership class that we have in Australia have any concept of what that is at all, mate.
And that's what's probably so sad about this, Scotty, is we just come out of 3-year Royal Commission.
Yeah.
So it's been smacking him in the face. The suicide rate, right? I think it's 3 veterans a fortnight committing suicide.
Is it that high?
It's that high. So at no stage are they listening. So, mate, if I'm Defence Minister, or if I'm Adam Bandt, or if I'm a Greens, who cares who's in? Go and ask your people, are you ready to go to Ukraine? Do you guys believe in Ukraine? And the first thing I'd say if Adam Bandt coming to ask questions, go, excuse me, Senator, why do you trash our Australian flag? My brother died under it. I've seen a lot of mates who've died through suicide that were buried under it. I've seen ramp ceremonies. Whenever I went and deployed, we raised the Australian flag, right? We have to believe in something when you potentially leave your families and your loved ones.
Yeah.
And Afghanistan, 41 didn't come home, right?
Yeah.
So if we've lost that, but it's there. It's so weird, Scotty, because we're a small nation, big land mass, but small nation, right? It's not hard, and these senators have access to the ADF facilities and bases. He's talking about AUKUS.
Yeah.
Go and ask these people. I go and I ask the fun, and it's not hard, right? Adam Bandt may be lot higher educated. He may be a lot more intellectual, but mate, go and ask the people what they want.
Yeah, but he's never had a conversation with a farmer from your district. He's never had a conversation with a small business owner that's struggling to get business open, or talks to anyone that pays payroll tax, for that matter, mate. No. So I very much doubt whether he's had the opportunity to speak to anyone who's currently serving that isn't there because of some diversity, higher representation type thing, mate.
Mate, I think a lot of these politicians, senators and lower house, they need to actually go and spend time at meet the commandos, meet the SAS, because these guys were doing up to 11 tours of Afghanistan. People don't realise to do an 11-month to do a deployment, 6-month deployment, there's probably 4 to 6 month work up there.
Yeah.
So if you've done 11, that's 11 years your life has been consumed in war.
Yeah.
Right. They know what's going on, and they come home. We prosecute both our special forces, Heston, and we drag the commandos through the mud over the doctored video footage of the ABC.
Yeah.
And then we destroy our most elite and revered military unit in Australia, being the Special Air Service, right? Mate, you've served, I've served. Most of these guys are corporals, privates, are all junior enlisted, right? We know the military's not run at that rank.
Yeah.
And when we deploy and we go off to fight, mate, we get mission orders. Every day there's a mission order before any activity, right? Before any course of action. You're fully briefed. You know your rules of engagement. I was listening to Heston Russell talk on a podcast, and my wife was in the car, and she's listening to him talk about Afghanistan and kill or capture missions, right?
Yeah.
Kill or capture. And Heston's talking to my wife's like, did this really happen? And she's married to a veteran who's deployed to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I don't think the Australian public really knows what went on there.
No, unless you see it firsthand, most people here had no clue that we were at war. Like that this was happening to sons and daughters, mate, overseas, and our country was involved in this thing. And then, I mean, look, we mentioned this earlier today when the DVA text message went out to say, Afghanistan's over now. It was like, and we got this, and so the new version of that is now when the war's over, we got a text message from Veterans Affairs saying, this may impact you and you might feel emotional about it. And here's a helpline if you need to. I can only imagine what guys like you must have felt when you saw that,
Whether I'm training or I'm operational, before any activity, there's a brief. You conduct the mission or the activity. The most important thing is the debrief, right?
Yeah.
What are the lessons learned? I'm a veteran now who served, though, in Afghanistan. There's still people enlisted, still serving, who were in Afghanistan. But also the Australian taxpayer, they actually own the Australian Defence Force, right? They pay for it. Not the government. It's taxes that pay for our military, right? It's part of GDP. None of us have had a debrief on that 20-year war. And, mate, it hits because for me, it was a mandatory in every activity we did, right? Or any mission. What happened in that war? How did we lose a 20-year war, right? What was the strategy for getting out? The strategy itself to exit that war was a failure. People talk immigration and Jared's anti-immigration. We're not. We're the correct immigration at the correct ratio for sustainment, right? Which I believe was under 100,000.
There's no reflection on anything that we've done so that we can make better decisions going forward. And so you mentioned that after all these years, like multiple conflicts, no Royal Commission into it, no inquiry, no, after. There's not been, I'm a business owner. Everything we do, we reflect back on that month, that week, that cycle, that promotion, that sale. We have to, because if we don't do that, we're going to do a really shit job of it next year because we're not going to learn the lessons from this year. And we haven't done that with the military. We haven't done that with anything that's come out of the Royal Commission into veterans and that you're involved in. And we haven't done that with COVID either. So there's no accountability, mate. None of these people are accountable to anybody. What the fuck?
And that's leadership, right? Leadership is standing up there and telling people how we performed.
How do we fuck it up? How we got it right? What we did good, what we did bad. How do we do better?
Do you know? And Scotty, I actually would like to. In for reflection, what have we done right in the last 10 years?
What have we done right? I mean, I've never seen it this bad. I've had a building company for 16 years. I had a guy message me today. He said, look, I can't tell you who I am. I'm an industry insider connected to regulatory bodies within the building industry in Queensland. And I can tell you right now that it's way worse than you guys think it is. Like, I mean, I'm always on about how bad it is. And he's going, I can't tell you who I am, but I can tell you right now that the level of insolvencies and the companies that are trading insolvent out there, it's completely profitless right now, and these guys are hanging on by their fingernails. And so I'm just watching this wonderful thing that we do, our capacity, our tradesmen, our great people, and we're just losing them hand over fist. The industry, the building industry is being gutted, much like the military, mate. And that's because everything the government touches, they fuck up right now. They fuck it up so.
And Scotty, we're destroying the ADF. We're destroying the building industry.
Yeah.
We're destroying small business.
Yeah.
This can't be mismanagement or failures of leadership. We cannot be intentionally destroying everything.
Can
Right?
we be this useless? Like, can it be
Yeah,
this useless?
can we?
Or
Yeah.
is it malicious intent, as we hinted at before, potentially?
Well, mate, in regard to me, the Royal Commissioner actually wrote to Barnaby Joyce saying, in the pursuit of truth, accountability, and justice, John Armfield has been intentionally and maliciously stonewalled, which led to a decline in his mental health and loss of career.
That's what they wrote.
That's what the Commissioner wrote, the Royal Commissioner to Barnaby, when Barnaby reached out asking what they thought was happening with me.
Yeah.
But, mate, I actually think that's what's happening with Australia.
Yeah.
It's intentionally and maliciously being stonewalled, which is leading to a decline in Australia. Our standards, our culture.
You're standing up, Jared's standing up. We've got great people that are coming to light. We're doing content, we're talking about it, we're trying to get the message out there. I know that the social media platforms are doing their best to shut down the narrative anytime anyone tries to get it out there. What's driving this undermining of our culture and our country, mate? What is it? What is this fifth column of traitors that are amongst us that are doing this right now?
Mate, it's a funny one because Jared will get a lot of people at every event we sort of host. Will blame the UN, World Economic Forum. But Jared, it's pretty. I like the way Jared looks at it, and it's us. It's our government, which is us, right?
Yeah.
They
signed
don't
the
come in and
agreement.
just we allow it to happen, And so, mate, I go and meet people. I try and get out as much as I can, promote myself, which I'm not really good at doing, unfortunately. But
Oh, you're doing a great job, mate.
well, mate, I'd rather be fighting for people because that's what you and I did. We fought for people, right? We fought for our country.
Well, I mean, I was prepared to. You literally did, mate, and and full credit to it. I wanted you to just touch back on that point you made, where people say, and I see this as well. People go, "Oh, we need to get out of the UN. It's the WEF. It's the Klaus Schwabs. It's the Davos crowd," and I don't disagree with them to some degree, but what I find is that there's so much of it that it's really hard to pinpoint, right? It's like constant attacks from different directions, so you can't really go, that's the target. I think internally we're so badly led, or maliciously, intently badly led, that we're unable to discern what the real threat to the country is, mate. And we're living in the threat right now because we're watching all these collapses and homeless people around us,
Mate, I think it's because, mate, we're lost. Australia's lost. We don't know if we're siding with Europe in Ukraine. We don't know if we're going to side with America. We've signed with the UN. We don't know if we're part of the World Economic Forum. We really need to look at who we are and what we want. I'd like us to think of ourselves as a sovereign nation.
Yeah.
I am military institutionalized, and I've got very close bonds with the American military, and I think very highly of those guys. I think they're very capable as well. So for me, there's a massive bias in still aligning with America, which is hard to remove.
Yeah.
But I also think we've got US troops here. We're going for US subs. We've got the LHDs. There's a massive. If we're not aligning with America, we really need to focus on ourselves. And I think if we focus on ourselves in all aspects, not just military, and we don't, and I agree with Jared, is by looking at the World Economic Forum, the UN, and everything else, we're looking past what we can control.
Yeah.
So right now, I met a lovely group on the weekend. I spent some time with them, and they've all got different ideas. I said, guys, as a group, come up with your priority. list all the issues you've got, but come up with your priority. And I believe for Australia right now, it's cost of living, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that cost of living will reflect in energy prices, housing, the homeless, food. So if we focus on cost of living, and I said to this group, pick your spokesperson. It doesn't have to be the leader; it's got to be your best speaker. Have the other people draw up your strategy and present it as a united front. And they go, "Oh, but John, how do we do that?" I said, go down to your local federal MP. Go at the front. I can find someone who'll help you do video shorts for TikTok and that, and they'll teach you how to do this. And they go, but the local MP is not going to listen. I said, guys, you forget we elect them. They serve us. And mate, I'd love to see that term politician removed. I'd like to see it replaced with public servant.
Actually, that's a good
to
point.
remind
Yeah. Yep.
just to remind these people who they work for, right?
I
So
think
if
I think that
someone's
Robert,
homeless,
people feel disconnected from the levers of power. And if I could just touch on this for a second, I joined the Liberal Party after Scott Morrison lost in 21. I didn't know anyone involved in politics. I didn't know anyone from my local Liberal Party branch. I didn't have any connections to it whatsoever, ever, other than I was pissed off during COVID at what I'd seen them do to my country. Went down to my local branch. Mate, within 6 months, I'm on the executive. I'm going to conventions. I'm talking to politicians. I'm meeting people like Jared. I'm meeting people like Canavan and Antic, and you're not that far disconnected from these people. A lot of people think that
no.
glass window at that office stops them from having any say in what happens. But trust me, at branch level, folks, there's less than 20 to 30 people that turn up to these meetings. And if you want to get involved and get your voice in there, it's actually not that hard to do. It's surprisingly easy, as you would have seen too, Johnny, when you joined, mate.
Mate, I think I look back at my dad's era, and so both our dads era, they would tell they had actually access to their members of parliament, state and federal,
Generally, they were a
their
local small
councils.
businessman or someone involved in the community, right?
Yep, and they would call them out for failures, right? And
Light
they'd
them up at the
openly be,
meetings. Light them up.
yep. But now people, and they don't feel they are entitled. They've almost put these people on a pedestal.
Yeah.
They've empowered this elitism. Instead, the public needs to be breaking that down and pulling
Maybe
these
that's what's
people
happened with the
down.
military class as well, is that what we've got now in politics is a whole bunch of staffers that have moved through the young youth organisations in the party. They've moved into staffing positions within HQ and the party, and then they've moved into elected positions as they've been parachuted into these places. And, Jared came up against that wall in the LNP when Brisbane City Council has way too much power within the LNP in Queensland, and the young LNP, mate, which literally these guys were the ones that stonewalled him and put him into a position where he had no choice but to distance himself, which I don't regret him doing at all. But like you, he was really the only light that I knew in the party to join the party in the first place. But it's that disconnect of that political class from the reality of the working man on the street that has created the situation. And I dare say it's probably much the same in the military as well.
Scotty, I'm a big fan. If say I'd got elected, and mate, this is almost mission impossible against the LNP and Fadden. But if one of the reasons I did want to run, one was to get a platform to hopefully have some power to fire back at the ADF and affect some change. On this journey, though, I'm actually now noticing I'm telling veterans, you can do what I'm doing. I'm not
100%.
unique. I'm nothing special. Get up there. Either go and volunteer and work within politics because everything's political, right? Speak to your local people or run. And they're going, oh, which party? I don't care which party you
Just
run
get
for.
involved, yeah.
Run. Yeah, and mate, I've got great mates who are very green sort of centric voters. Go for that way. I don't care. Do what you've got to do, but have a voice. Um,
That's awesome, man. There's no political bias in that whatsoever. Your
no,
passion here is for people to care and to get involved, and also to realize that they can make a difference. That you can make a difference if you get involved.
well, mate, you don't want one viewpoint, right? And that goes back to the military. We're talking there's no racism. Oh, and maybe, mate, maybe there is always little bits of stuff. It's not perfect, right? But within the military, when you're serving, I'm serving, and I'd say I'm a junior sailor, for example, every single person likes a different football team. They've got different political views. They may be straight, they may be gay, whatever. But everyone's so different. But we seem to be able to respect everyone's viewpoint.
Yeah.
We seem to get along, and a lot of that is the fact that we trust each other with our lives.
Yeah.
Like we're very interconnected, right? And every diver, even the divers I don't really, we're not my close friends. They're all brothers, right? And they're all unique. But I find in politics, that's not the way it is. It's people are very ruthless. They don't respect other people's opinions, viewpoints. You can't have a rational discussion, you know. And you and I are talking. You know, Jared Cops. People either love Jared or they literally hate him. But there's no in between. No one can. I try and talk to people like, oh, I really like that one policy of Jared's. I said, well, that's cool. Oh, but I hate this one. I said, that's cool. And they're like, really? I said, have you actually emailed Jared and told him what you do and don't like?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't do that. Okay, of course you can.
Yeah.
You can do that to anyone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I helped him host a few spaces on X a couple of times, and the diverse range of opinions that came through there. And mate, I never once, while I was helping him manage that thing, had to chop anyone off for being, for swearing at him or for trying to degrade him. None of that ever happened. You'd have 180, 200 people in that space, and they were all wanting to contribute positively and talk about what we can do to work together. Because at the end of the day, I'm a business owner. I've got my leadership team. I bring all those people in around me. You've done this as well, mate. We need to hear the opinions of everyone at the table so we can make a better informed decision. What we don't do is go, those fucking roofers, I don't want to chop. If I chop them out, I don't have to listen to their opinion, and then I don't have to deal with that problem. That's not how it works. I need to hear their opinion because I need to know what the fucking problem is so I can make a better decision about what we need to do. It's constant. And so politics should be about involvement. But what we've seen in the modern political era is them shutting down anyone, like they did with Jared, with the LNP, anyone who has a differing opinion, who differs from the narrative that they want to control.
Jared can't get on Sky. He can't get on ABC.
Yeah.
Can't get on 7, 9, 10. And he did a podcast the other day with 3 self-made millionaires who've got their own show on the Gold Coast. These guys hit him, all different industries, and they hit him with every question you could think of on the economy, on business. They're all business owners. And by the time they finished, they all said, you should be Prime Minister. And at one stage, one of them stopped him, the head guy, and he said, Jared, we're all self-made, successful businessmen. And the way you're talking is over our head. Can you dumb it down?
Yeah. I hope they wrote him a big check at the end of that meeting. So.
Oh, mate, he's got, and the thing with Jared, he's not getting the opportunity to be proven right or wrong because he's just shut down by mainstream media. And
which is a ridiculous shame, mate, because honestly, he was a shining light during COVID, But every time he got on Sky, they did their absolute best to destroy his character and his opinions. And with the benefit of hindsight, I saw a podcast today. It's been 5 years since lockdowns kicked off, and it's like, with reflection, he wasn't wrong. He was 110% correct. I mean, should we not listen to the man for that very reason alone?
So, mate, what Jared was saying for the last 5 years, the Australian Human Rights Commission's just come out and backed it up.
Just
5 years late.
Just. I mean, what's the point?
Right.
How much money do we pay them every year, mate, for that?
So where's the mate? I'm happy to shoot politicians down, and they need it, but we've also got to tell them when they've done something right.
Doesn't mean that literally, okay?
Not.
It's going to make a clip, that one.
But yeah, bet you Adam Baird will have that one up tomorrow.
I'll actually make the clip for Adam, mate. I'll fucking send it to you. It'll be fucking awesome. Fuck you.
But mate, we also need to tell our politicians when they've nailed it and they're right.
Yeah.
Imagine having mainstream media going, and this politician got it right, regardless of which political views they've got, right?
Yeah.
that sort of thing. We don't do that here. And mate, I'd even be happy if Labor or the Liberals or the Greens, someone actually goes, "Hey, we want to run with this policy from people first." There
Yeah.
is nothing. There's nothing wrong as a human being admitting someone else has got something that we could do better.
I actually
You know
respect
what I
people
mean?
more when they do that. I mean, if Adam Bank
Yeah.
stood there in front of you at a press conference at the National Press Club and said, "Look, it was a mistake of me to remove the Australian flag, and I just want to thank all of our serving members for everything they've done, past, present, and future. Like we'll make it a welcome to country. I just want to thank all the serving guys, people have given for our country. I just want to thank you all for helping me be here today." I mean, what would that mean to you? I mean, how
Oh,
could you imagine how people would go, "Holy shit, did he just thank me for what I've done, or for my injuries, or for what I've given for my country?" Like,
mate, he'd make me cry. He'd literally make me cry because, mate, what Adam Bant doesn't get is, as a brother, everyone grieves and we all lose people, but when you lose someone through service, right? Adam Bant's literally shitting on that, and he doesn't get it. So we've got our grief, but then he embellishes it. He empowers that grief
yeah,
by his disrespect for their service.
but
So
that's the
he's
value
not
of
only
it's a
saying
grievance culture. That's what they do.
it is,
That's their
mate. It's
validation.
mate. If I was Adam Band's shoes, I'd come out and go, look, I've heard some of the comments lately. I didn't realise the pain I was causing our veteran community
Yeah,
or the loved ones of veterans.
yeah,
I do apologise. I do have my own views on the flag. Say that. I do have my own, but keep them to yourself. You don't. You can come out and say, I've got views on Jared. I've got views on Anthony Albanese, Peter Dutton, whoever, Adam Bant. But you don't have to literally destroy an individual or our flag, right? And if you want to change it, go through the correct process. I'm not a fan of that. I love my flag, you know. Um, but you don't have to stand there and tear it down and literally burn it in place, right?
Johnny, I think we've all got a pretty good idea of the type of person and the patriot you are, and you've got a really detailed and deep story. And when that book comes out, mate, trust me, I'll be plugging it as hard as I possibly can. You are the candidate for Fadden, for People First. It's an incredible feat to toss your hat in the ring, especially given what you've been through. And I know Jared's judgment is on point when he's got people like you around him. If you are elected as the member for Fadden, what about Fadden are you gonna embrace and get that you're going to try and fix in your area, mate?
Mate, first of all, it's got to be cost of living. It's got to be small business. Fadden is made up of small business, trades, first responders. You know, Jared wants to tackle cost of living. He wants to look at from a first responder, nurses, doctors perspective, the issues with childcare. You know, a lot of people are reaching out. So, you know, a fireman, for example, doesn't do 9 to 5, Monday
No,
to Friday,
shift
or a
work.
policeman.
Yeah.
And mate, people are saying, well, Jared's trying to destroy superannuation. He's trying to destroy childcare. He's trying to create an opportunity where if I'm given the money to choose when my kids go to school, that's how businesses create, right? I could sit here now and I'm looking at what Jared's trying to do. I go, there's actually a business opportunity to have a 24/7 childcare.
Yeah. Well,
One,
yeah.
and mate, I'd call it frontline childcare for
I,
frontline responders. Mate, then superannuation, right? I speak to people. I was speaking to a lawyer, and they're like, John, if I could access my super, I've paid off my house, and that's a lawyer. And they go, I'm killing it financially because the interest rates and what I'm paying, the super is never going to cover it.
yeah.
And the cost, and not only for those who are already in housing and want to pay out their mortgage, what are those who can't access the market? So I think Jared's voluntary superannuation's great. He can do he'll do the figures when we have a live audience, and he'll go, if you're on this much money, this is what you're going to have at retirement. And people are sitting there bewildered, and he's doing the maths in his head. And this at this return, this and this and this. And people are like, how's he doing that? Does he practice? I go, no, he's an ex-accountant. That's his niche.
Yeah.
But I think those three things are main. Mate, I know people are talking infrastructure. I know people are talking roads in the area. Another big one that's very close to my heart, mate, education. Education's declining in Australia. There's the percentage of the kids are getting out of year 10 and 12 who can't read and write. It's like, and there was the Australian Primary Schools Principal Association's president did an article a couple of weeks ago on the curriculum, how the curriculum's now changing, and there's 2,700 things being implemented relating to First Nations, mate. And he actually said our education system and our teachers have gone from a very narrow and deep river to very wide and shallow, saying their knowledge now is so over so many subjects that we have no experts.
Yeah.
So we've got no experts. How do our kids learn? Mate, all I need my kids to know is maths, English, big fan of history, know the mistakes we've made, know not to make those again. Geography, science. And I've got two young boys, so they need physical education
100%.
to sort of.
Yeah.
But mate, our kids. I was speaking to a businesswoman today, and very successful, running her business, got multiple investment properties. She goes, John, my son's 18, doesn't know how to do a budget, doesn't know how to do compound interest. And I'm like, aren't these core things we
Well,
should
you
be
can guarantee he
teaching?
doesn't know how to do a tax return, and he doesn't understand the preferential voting system either.
Well, I said to this lady, I said, your son would have learnt more coming to work with you. And she goes, he would have.
Yeah.
So what are we doing?
And one of the major reasons for our trade shortage is pushing these kids to finish year 12 instead of leaving school at year 10 and kicking off a carpentry apprenticeship. You know, I mean, like, we make them finish year 12 and they do some pre-apprenticeship time or some vocational training in their last year, but this push to year 12, and then they want 80% of all of these kids to go to university now, just means we're exacerbating the trade shortage, which means we're losing the capacity to do things with our hands, which is an essential part of our Australian culture. And so we're undermining that with this current education system as well. Makes no sense.
And mate, Scotty, I do a day a week working at a hospital, and I speak to a lot of nurses, love nurses, very military humour, black humour like the military. And I was speaking to a nurse on the weekend at a meeting I went to. I said, Jared always talks about nurses' colleges.
Yeah.
And this lady, John, the standard of nursing was so high. And she goes, all these uni graduates now, they don't know what they're doing. We've got to retrain them. And I'm like, do our nurses even need to go to university?
100%.
Because everyone I speak to,
yeah,
everyone I speak
make
to
it an
said the
apprenticeship.
nurses
Instead,
college.
they make them go to uni. They make them work pretty much for a year to 18 months for free. Like, they don't even get fucking paid, and then they leave university with a HECS debt. Plus, they made them all get fucking vaccinated during COVID as well, mate. You know, so, and if they didn't get jabbed, they couldn't get their placements to get their nursing degrees. You know, like, the whole thing was such a stitch up for them. I actually really feel sorry for the nurses because I'd spoken to one myself, heard the same story. You know. So she's going to be paying off that HECS debt instead of paying off a house.
Yeah, it's criminal, right? And I think, mate, Jared talks about the unis, and they really are now a money-making scheme.
Yeah.
Also, the what's happening with the superannuation. 70% of the superannuation, which is around 3 to 4 trillion, is now invested overseas.
Yeah. And then the rest of it is so heavily invested in our stock exchange that the market's literally manipulated by super money.
Yes. Yeah.
And so is that really the wealth of the country? Overseas investment and the ASX? I mean, I'm sure when Keating implemented it, maybe that was his intention when he implemented it at 2%. His goal was to manipulate the ASX. I'm not really sure. But as in the building industry, the biggest concern we're having now is that the way the rules and regulations are being formulated, that what it's going to do is it's going to actually favour superannuation to invest in the Australian housing market and eventually own all the houses here, mate. Like, that's kind of, I know that sounds really big and conspiratorial, but that's what we kind of see coming down the track here, because they're going to be the only ones with enough money to be able to function in the industry.
Yeah. And, mate, this is the taxpayers' money that's created these enormous superannuation funds. and then it's those superannuation funds that are destroying the taxpayer. You know what I mean?
The irony, right? The
The-
irony. You know, John,
and,
you're a great guy, man. You've got such a good pulse on what's going on with our country. I think you're a fantastic advocate for veterans and a really important person to be part of the debate at the moment, mate. And have you got anything else that you want to add at the end of this interview now, like to wrap it up?
mate, the one thing I'm pushing is, mate, I don't need more than one term. I just want to try and get in, and I want to show veterans they can do it, but so can tradesmen, so can first responders. You don't need to be a lawyer. You definitely don't need to have gone to uni and just studied politics. I'd like to see. I speak to the farmers. I speak, mate. Why don't you run? You've got all this lived experience, you know, and I think that's what politics is lacking is, mate, have a veteran, have a farmer, have a tradesman, have a policeman, you know, bring that was democracy was designed on one term to avoid corruption, right? You're not supposed to be a career politician. It's criminal. It should not be. Because what have you done? What have you achieved?
Well, the only
Get
thing
out there
you've
and do
achieved down
something.
there is to make sure that your lobbying job or board membership is lined up for you when you leave, so you can end up working on the board of Optus or the Australian Banking Association or something like that, mate. You know.
Mate, what I truly believe, mate, and from the bottom of my heart is a politician is a public servant. The people, the Australian taxpayer needs to wake up for this and hold these people to account. The other thing is I'm proven the lead. I have led teams and I'm proven the fight. I've picked up weapons for this country. I've deployed. I've lost my brother doing this, you know. He fought for my country. So if people are interested in me and they want to support me, I believe that I do represent the people. I will answer to the people, and I will fight for the people.
Mate,
And
I'll link all of your socials in the footnotes for this interview. John, let's make sure we do this again, please, if we can, because
yeah,
we haven't gotten a federal election called yet. We know it's going to be. It's probably going to be in May. It'd be wonderful to talk again before then and get your opinions on how things are playing out, mate. And I really want to say thanks very much for doing this tonight, and we'll no doubt talk again, mate. Good on you.
thanks, Scotty. I appreciate it.